Good evening, Little Masters, and welcome to episode 235 of the Prancing Pony podcast, where the list of things Sauron hates is growing ever longer.
I mean, at this point, it might be easier to just make a list of things he doesn't hate.
You know, that's fair. Yeah.
You know? But folks, go ahead and pull up a bench in the common room. I'm Sean Marchese, the Lord of the Mark, and I'm here with the Man of the West, who once applied for the job of Silent Watcher, Alan Sisto.
But the interview, I have to tell you, was really awkward. The guy didn't say a thing.
It was right there on the job description. I don't know why you thought the supervisor would be any different.
I know. And of course, do you think I was really able to stay quiet the entire interview? I can't stay quiet for 5 minutes on this show, so...
Alan, after 235 episodes, come on, everybody knows that.
Everybody knows I'm not a fit for that job. Yeah. All right. Well, folks, today we are going to take a history lesson with Gollum as our teacher in the second half of The Black Gate is Closed.
Oh, that sounds fun.
Doesn't it?
And for those of you joining us for the first time, welcome. Here at the Prancing Pony podcast, we are reading and talking our way through Tolkien's stories of Middle-earth, a few pages at a time.
We dive into the details, point out connections to other writings, talk about our favorite themes.
But we also make sure we have a lot of fun along the way. So we're glad you've joined us.
And we know you'll be glad you joined as well. But before we get into the chapter tonight, it's time for a further offering of fan favorite philology fare.
I respect your use of alliteration, sir. Thank you.
It's getting harder and harder, though. There's only so many words that
Further offering of fan favorite philology. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good stuff, man.
My thesaurus runs dry.
Yeah.
My word hoard empties for you,
Your
sir.
word hoard is empty. Your word hoard has been raided by a hobbit and a pack of dwarves. All right. Well, the last time we did this segment, we looked into the name Smeagol. Well, this time we're looking into a word that's been used to describe Smeagol about 5 or 6 times in this book already, with more to come. And that word is wretch. Now, we actually had several of our listeners request this word. Too many to name, in fact, and I'm sorry I can't name you all. It's mainly because I'm sure I'd miss somebody, because there really were a lot of you. So thank you all who suggested this one. You all know who you are, and we'll go ahead and get started.
All right.
Now, unsurprisingly, the word wretch has its origins in Old English. The Old English form was recca, or racca, with an ash, that's the A and the E stuck together instead of an E. And it comes from an Old Germanic word reconstructed as something like rakian in Old Germanic. And it's actually got a cognate form in German, which we're going to be talking about in just a few minutes.
Now, in today's English, it means an unfortunate or unhappy person. But when it first appeared in Old English in 888, it originally had a meaning of one driven out of or away from his native country, a banished person, an exile. Now, it didn't have those negative connotations that it has now early on. In fact, according to the OED, there's an Old Saxon form spelled just a little differently that was actually applied to the 3 magi of the Christian nativity story.
That's right, who are, wanderers, maybe exiles of a sort, but certainly not unfortunate or unhappy people.
No.
But by the year 1000, it had already started to take on a secondary, more negative meaning of one who is sunk in deep distress, or sorrow, or misfortune, or poverty, a miserable or unhappy or unfortunate person, or a poor or hapless being. And gradually, I think people probably know now, that meaning kind of took over.
Yeah.
The more neutral meaning of an exile or wanderer actually disappeared by about the 15th century. And of course, the more negative meaning continues to this day, including right here in Lord of the Rings.
That's right.
But I want to talk a little bit about how this word, which was originally a neutral word, ended up becoming very negative in the space of just about 100 years, from 888 to 1000. How does a word which starts out simply meaning an exile or a banished person, how does that come so quickly to mean somebody who's miserable, somebody who's unfortunate?
Yeah.
And I think the answer lies in the culture of the Anglo-Saxons and the importance of community to the Anglo-Saxons. We talked all the way back in episode 5 about the sins of Melkor. One of those sins of Melkor, which you pointed out, Alan, and one of my favorite insights of yours of all time, was the sin of self-isolation or withdrawal from community. And we talked about how that kind of seems strange to us now.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah, especially because especially here in America, but I think a lot of places in the 21st century, individualism is a value that we cherish.
Absolutely.
You want to be your own person. You want to be independent, But it hasn't always been that way. And we talked about this all the way back in that early episode. In the Middle Ages, community was really important.
Yeah, vital.
I mean, beyond important, right? Like, yeah, vital. It could mean the difference between life and death.
Oh, absolutely. And we talked about how Melkor's desire to isolate himself from the community of the Ainur was a red flag. It was a huge warning sign. It led to his, and I'm quoting now, conceiving thoughts of his own unlike those of his brethren. Now, it was one of the classic sins of Melkor that became part of the template for evil, or at least for misguided deeds, throughout the Legendarium. We certainly see how self-isolation and self-imposed exile was destructive to Turin, for example.
Oh, man. Yeah. And stubbornly self-imposed. Like how many people reached out to him,
come back
come back to Doriath. Right. He's like, no, I'm good.
The king pardons you. No, I'm out. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. I'm my own man. I'm a lone wolf.
That's right.
And surely we could spend all day talking about why somebody like Melkor or somebody like Turin would willingly do that to themselves. Why would they willingly accept that fate, right?
Yeah.
But I think that's a little bit more of a digression than we have time for. Sorry, folks. I think it's clear enough that for the Anglo-Saxons, community was really, really important. It was everything in some cases.
It really did take a village.
It really did. Yeah. I mean, it was just really important to have a community around you. And one who was separated from their community was going to be someone who was unhappy, who was unfortunate, who was miserable. And so a wretch, in the sense of an exile, gradually came to mean wretch the way we use it today.
Now, Tolkien, of course, uses this word many times for Gollum, both as a noun, wretch, and in the adjective form, wretched. And Tolkien, being the master of words that he was, certainly knew that Gollum was a wretch in both senses of the word. He is an exile, right? His grandmother kicked him out.
Literally in exile, yeah.
Yeah. And, of course, he is miserable.
Yeah. And interestingly enough, by the year 1500, wretch had also taken on another meaning, which was a person or a little creature, which, according to the OED, is used as a term of playful depreciation.
Playful depreciation. I'll have to remember that
Isn't
next
that
time.
Great?
Oh, come here, you little wretch.
I'm not insulting him. I'm just playfully depreciating him. The OED says to denote slight commiseration or pity. Now, you got to acknowledge that Gollum is also a wretch in that sense, right? He's a little creature. He's deserving of pity. And I think for the most part, most of the people who call him wretch in the book kind of do so with a sense of pity. Maybe not Sam.
Well, I think one of the times Sam calls him that poor wretch. I mean, he very clearly indicating maybe not pity proper. Sam really doesn't really pity.
I don't know that he's really
much.
all that compassionate, but yeah, there's some pity there, isn't there?
A little bit of the poor guy,
Yeah. Now, back to this Old English root word. It's also related to the word wreak, which now exists primarily in English in phrases like to wreak havoc, where it basically means to inflict something.
So we're not talking about R-E-E-K, reek, because we've seen
not
that word.
Reek. That's the stinky reek. Yeah.
Well, or the fog.
Or smoky reek.
The smoky reek, right.
Yeah. So wreak in the sense of wreak havoc today means something like to inflict, but it did originally have a meaning of to drive or banish. And so that connection back to wretch as someone who's been banished is pretty darn clear. And the similar sounding word wreck, as in wreck your car or a shipwreck, is also related.
Yeah, I don't want to hear about that. But there is another word that's related to this word in German, which is really interesting, right? And that's why we decided to do this word for today's rather lengthy philology fair.
Well, when you're right, Alan. And you are right this time.
Yep.
See,
this time, I heard you sneak that in there.
Hey, broken clock.
There you go.
See, something really interesting happened to this Germanic root word rakian while it was on its way to becoming wretch in English. It took on a very negative connotation in English, as we've just discussed. However, in Old High German, which is the ancestor of modern German, this old word rakian for an exile became rekio, and I do not know how to pronounce Old High German, so I'm just going to guess that that's how it is. Rekio, meaning exile, adventurer, or knight errant. Okay. And then from that meaning, and particularly the last two, it became the modern German word, I don't know how to pronounce German either, I'm sorry, Recke?
Recke?
R-E-C-K-E?
Probably Recke.
Okay, Recke?
I'm guessing. I don't know. I took 3 years of high school German and college German combined, but heaven knows how long ago that was, so I could be wrong.
Well, one of our German listeners can correct me on this. I think maybe it is Recke. but it means warrior or hero.
Yeah.
So the same word that came to mean somebody who's miserable or unfortunate in English eventually turned into a word meaning warrior or hero in German.
That's wild.
Isn't that
radically
wild?
different words.
Two radically different words. And yeah, I mean, the Oxford English Dictionary even comments on this, saying the contrast in the development of the meaning in English and German is remarkable. And yeah, it's amazing. This is why I love etymologies, because a word can end up meaning totally different things in two different related languages.
And I mean, I can see where it went with each of those. I mean, again, somebody who is banished may end up being pretty quickly miserable. So I can see why in 100 years we get wretch going from just somebody who's been banished to somebody who's miserable. But also this idea of somebody who is an exile because they're a knight errant, right? They don't have a home because they're out there doing all these amazing deeds. And then from that, we get to hero. Yeah. Wow, that's fascinating.
It is.
That diversion of meanings and how they end up on totally opposite paths. This is fascinating.
Pretty cool stuff.
Indeed it is.
All right. Well, with that, I think I'm going to let you be the hero.
Oh.
And go ahead and pick up where we left off last episode.
You're not going to banish me? That's good. I appreciate that.
Not this time. No, because you did something right already once in this episode. So.
Well, then that means my counter is already
It's all
ticking
downhill
down.
from here, right?
I've got maybe one more in me, and that's it. All right. I'll go ahead and pick up exactly where you left off last week.
All right.
Oh, yes, there is a third way,
said Gollum.
That is the road to the left. At once it begins to climb up, winding and climbing back towards the tall shadows. When it turns round the black rock, you'll see it. Suddenly you'll see it above you and you'll want to hide.
See it? See it? What will you see?
The old fortress. Very old, very horrible now. We used to hear tales from the south when Smeagol was young, long ago. Oh, yes. We used to tell lots of tales in the evening, sitting by the banks of the great river in the Willowlands, when the river was younger, too.
He began to weep and mutter. The hobbits waited patiently.
Tales out of the south,
Gollum went on again,
about the tall men with the shining eyes, and their houses like hills of stone, and the silver crown of their king and his white tree. Wonderful tales. They built very tall towers, and one they raised was silver white, and in it there was a stone like the moon, and round it were great white walls. Oh, yes, there were many tales about the Tower of the Moon.
That would be Minas Ithil that Isildur, the son of Elendil, built, said Frodo. It was Isildur who cut off the finger of the enemy.
Yes, he has only 4 on the black hand. They are enough,
said Gollum, shuddering.
And he hated Isildur's city.
What does he not hate? Said Frodo. And I'm going to stop there because, really, what does he not hate?
It's such a great remark from Frodo.
It is, isn't it?
We gotta hold off until we get to it.
I think so. I do.
All right.
Man.
Well, let's go back to the last episode for a minute when we will recall that Gollum had told Frodo about a crossing on the road that goes down to the south.
Right.
And if you recall, or if you're looking at your map, the road to the right, if you're going south, the road to the right is going to head west, and that leads to Osgiliath. And if you go straight on the road, you're continuing down south, and that, of course, leads to the sea.
Yeah, but there is a third way, and that's what we start this chapter, or I should say this episode with, the road to the left or to the east. And Gollum says it starts to climb up right away. It starts gaining elevation immediately, winding its way, and presumably up some sort of switchbacks, one imagines.
Yeah. And then it makes a turn, and that's when you see it, and you're going to want to hide. And understandably, Frodo wants to know what Gollum is talking about here. He's really having a little bit of trouble getting to the point. And all I can think of is, but the Grail, where is the Grail?
Seek you the Bridge of Death.
The Bridge of Death, which leads to the Grail? I mean, it's just like, I don't know. It's like, just get to the point already.
Just exactly. Say what you mean to say. Yeah. So yeah, Gollum tells him, look, that's the old fortress. It's very horrible now. So no, you probably don't want to stop by. It's definitely not something you want to book an Airbnb at.
Nope.
And Then he explains what he knows, I love this, from tales from the South when he was young. And we're reminded, if we're paying attention here, this was in the Willowlands by the Anduin.
Yeah, and this is sad because clearly this memory causes him great sorrow. I mean, he's weeping, he's muttering.
So sad.
And now Frodo's being patient.
Yeah.
The hobbits are waiting patiently. And he does eventually go on about these tales out of the South, he says.
That's right. That's right. And first, of course, he mentions the tall men with the shining eyes. And these are, of course, the survivors of the downfall of Numenor.
Absolutely is. And I love the bit about the shining eyes because this is often a sign of fairy and ennoblement.
It always is, isn't it?
Yeah. I'm actually thinking of two passages, not from the Legendarium, but from Smith of Wootton Major.
Oh, cool.
That I'm reminded of here. And I'm going to read a couple of these here. So the first one is, "It reminds me of fairy," he heard himself say. And that's Smith talking about the fairy star.
Yeah.
"But in fairy, the people sing too." Then he began to sing, high and clear, in strange words that he seemed to know by heart. And in that moment the star fell out of his mouth, and he caught it on his open hand. It was bright silver now, glistening in the sunlight, but it quivered and rose a little, as if it was about to fly away. Without thinking, he clapped his hand to his head, and there the star stayed in the middle of his forehead, and he wore it for many years. Few people in the village noticed it, though it was not invisible to attentive eyes, but it became part of his face, and it did not usually shine at all. Some of its light passed into his eyes, and his voice, which had begun to grow beautiful as soon as the star came to him, became ever more beautiful as he grew up.
So the light became part of his face, and then it passed into his eyes.
Yeah.
I love that. That's very much a fairy thing, isn't it?
Yeah, very much. This fairy star that, I mean, and if folks haven't read Smith of Wootton Major, you really should.
You should. You absolutely should. And it's an easy read, folks.
It is
short. It's something you could seriously read in a single sitting.
In fact, I think we just talked about this in our last North Wing, didn't we? It's a nice, short, easy read, and just so beautiful and so fun.
Oh, it really is.
There's another passage here that I really want to read because I think it really echoes the coming of the Númenóreans to Middle-earth.
I think I know which passage you're talking about.
I bet you probably do. When he first began to walk far without a guide, he thought he would discover the further bounds of the land. But great mountains rose before him, and going by long ways round about them, he came at last to a desolate shore. He stood beside the sea of windless storm where the blue waves like snow-clad hills roll silently out of unlight to the long strand, bearing the white ships that return from battles on the dark marches, of which men know nothing. He saw a great ship cast high upon the land, and the waters fell back in foam without a sound. The elven mariners were tall and terrible, their swords shone and their spears glinted, and a piercing light was in their eyes. Suddenly they lifted up their voices in a song of triumph, and his heart was shaken with fear, and he fell upon his face, and they passed over him and went away into the echoing hills.
That was the passage I was thinking about.
Yeah. I thought it might be, of course.
Those mariners, that's a moment, and
yeah.
If you haven't read the story, folks, it's, again, I can't recommend it enough. It is well worth the effort because it's not much effort, so please do it.
Yeah.
But even if we didn't get the bit about the silver crown and white tree, we know that the tall men with the shining eyes, we know these are the Númenóreans.
Totally.
Especially the bit about the height, right? I mean, if we go back to episode 167, we dove into some notes about Elendil that led us to conclude he was something like 7'10", 7'11". That's almost 8 feet tall.
That's right. He's a tall dude.
Yeah.
And then, in case we haven't gotten all the hints, we then do get the bit about the silver crown and the white tree. So then it's very obviously the Númenóreans.
Makes it absolutely obvious. And then Gollum goes on to talk about the stories about these people. And among those stories were these tall towers that they built. One of them was silver white with a stone like the moon surrounded with white walls. And that's the Tower of the Moon, or as Frodo then explains, Minas Ithil.
Right.
And then Frodo adds, though, that it was built by Isildur, who's not only the son of Elendil, but the one who cut the finger from Sauron's hand and took the ring.
Right. Very much a part of the story we're in now.
Oh, yes.
And then Gollum confirms that, oh, yes, Sauron is missing a finger, only 4 on the black hand. And this confirms 2 very important things. First of all, that Gollum has actually seen Sauron, right?
Right.
And 2, that Sauron has at least some physical form.
Yes, he does.
You know, we talked about this last time too. The black hand suggests that he has a physical form. Here it's very clear. This is not a metaphor. This is literally he has a 4-fingered black hand.
Yeah, he has a physical form and he's not able to even heal that missing finger. You know,
right.
He's lost that ability to change his form. So,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, it also implies one other thing. It doesn't confirm this necessarily because he could have just stopped by to say hi. But I think it strongly implies that Sauron was personally involved in Gollum's torture.
Certainly.
The 4 fingers on the black hand are enough, said Gollum, shuddering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true. I mean, you could think that, maybe he was just kind of standing there directing orcs or something to torture him. But the idea that they are enough and Gollum shudders, I mean, that implies that Gollum has felt that hand physically.
Yeah, it really does. And then we get that one last little bit. Not surprisingly, Sauron really didn't like Minas Ithil.
Right. But you could pretty much fill a book with things Sauron hates.
Oh, yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah, you really could.
And I guess Tolkien's done that, really.
Yeah, he pretty much has, hasn't he? Remember, though, when we were dealing with Melkor / Morgoth in season 1?
Yeah.
Everything. It was, he hated this.
Oh, he hated everything.
That.
Yeah.
He hated everything.
Yeah.
Sauron is no different. Yeah.
Yep. I mean, Sauron doesn't really have too many original tunes. For the most part, he's just a cover band of Morgoth.
He really is. And Morgoth was just a bunch of braying trumpets, a bunch of Johnny One Notes, being all discordant and stuff. Yeah.
Sauron's like the ultimate Morgoth tribute band. I mean, okay, he's got one original hit, and that's The Ring. But like everything else is basically
That's true. Just if you've seen Morgoth, you've seen this guy.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you go see Sauron because like Morgoth's retired. He's not touring anymore. I mean, I guess he's imprisoned, but
he's not even releasing studio work. Yeah.
No, not at all. Sauron's still releasing studio work. It's not as good as the old stuff, but it's what you got.
Exactly. So before we get back to the discussion, we want to make sure you know that when you finish listening to this episode, the talk continues all night long here at the Prancing Pony Podcast.
That's right. Our awesome listener community keeps the conversation going in all of our social media spaces, from our common room on Facebook to our Reddit community to Twitter and more.
That's right. Now, on Facebook, just look for the Prancing Pony Podcast and be sure to follow both the page and the group that you want to join that for some great discussions.
And you can find us on Reddit at r/PrancingPonyPod. And we're also at PrancingPonyPod on Twitter and Instagram.
All right. Well, what does Sauron not hate? It's a very small list.
Yep.
But let me have you pick up exactly where I left off, talking about the Tower of the Moon.
Okay. But what has the Tower of the Moon to do with us?
Well, Master, there it was, and there it is. The tall tower and the white houses and the wall, but not nice now, not beautiful. He conquered it long ago. It is a very terrible place now. Travelers shiver when they see it. They creep out of sight. They avoid its shadow. But Master will have to go that way. That is the only other way. For the mountains are lower there, and the old road goes up and up until it reaches a dark pass at the top. And then it goes down, down again, to Gorgoroth.
His voice sank to a whisper, and he shuddered. But how will that help us? Asked Sam. Surely the enemy knows all about his own mountains, and that road will be guarded as close as this. The tower isn't empty, is it?
Oh no, not empty,
whispered Gollum.
It seems empty, but it isn't, oh no. Very dreadful things live there. Orcs, yes, always orcs, but worse things live there too. The road climbs right under the shadow of the walls and passes the gate. Nothing moves on the road that they don't know about. The things inside know. The silent watchers.
God, kind of got chills the way you said that. The things inside know. Wow. Well, let's go back to the beginning of that passage. So Frodo asks a very, very relevant question. You're talking about Minas Ithil, but what does that have to do with us and the road you're suggesting we take? Now, Gollum points out Minas Ithil is a very terrible place. Of course, it's Minas Morgul now. He doesn't know that, or if he knows it, he doesn't mention it. But it's that because, of course, it's been conquered by Sauron, by the Witch King, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And people avoid even its shadow. Though I kind of wonder about that line, right? What does it say here? Travelers shiver when they see it. How many travelers go through the pass of Minas Morgul? I mean,
it's a good question. It's not like there's a whole lot of tour groups going through here.
I mean, if I go to Yelp and say top 10 activities in Ithilien, I'm pretty sure the path to Minas Morgul is not one of them.
Maybe not, but maybe it's tall enough that maybe you can see it from Ithilien.
Yeah, maybe,
I don't know.
Maybe.
I mean, you got to figure like Faramir and his rangers see it regularly.
Maybe. I don't know. Gollum makes it sound like you don't see it unless you go up the road and then around a corner.
That's a good point. Yeah.
So, yeah. Anyway, it's just travelers, the very rare travelers shiver when they see it. Yeah.
It's not like that's one of the popular hiking paths in the area.
No,
like,
you're not. Scour Instagram all you want. And you're not going to find too many selfies with Minas Morgul in the background.
Spooky Ithilien ghost tours. Walk under the shadow of Minas Morgul.
Oh, man. No.
But Gollum says rightly, like it might be scary, but it is the only other way.
That's right. Yeah.
And it is a pass over the Ethel Duath and into Gorgoroth. I mean, this is the fence of shadow, right? And this it's a fence. It's you're not going to get through it except through the gate. And this happens to be one gate or one pass through it.
That's right.
And Sam expresses some concern.
Yeah, you might put it that way. Yeah.
How is any of this knowledge going to help us? The road has to be as guarded as this gate is.
Yeah.
And surely the tower is not empty, right?
No, and Gollum completely agrees. It's definitely not empty. There are orcs and things that are far worse than orcs. Of course, we know that, right? The Witch King, this is his place.
Yep.
And the road passes the gate and runs right up along the walls. So if you're going to take the road, you're going right next to this place.
Yeah. But that's not all. That's not the only thing guarding it. There's also this other mysterious things inside, these silent watchers. And man, this is creepy. They know.
Isn't it? Yeah.
They know.
The silent watchers know.
Yeah. It's just creepy. Now, we are going to talk more about the silent watchers when we get there later this season. But for now, I think it's interesting and I think worth pointing out that Gollum's talking about the silent watchers as though they're at Minas Ithil or Minas Morgul, right?
Yeah.
And not near the tower in Cirith Ungol where we're actually going to encounter them later in the book.
That's a very good point. And Christopher Tolkien wondered about that as well. In The War of the Ring, he says, leaving open the question of whether at this stage my father had already decided that Cirith Ungol was guarded by its own tower, it would be interesting to know whether that decision had been taken when he introduced into the manuscript Gollum's references to the Silent Watchers. The Watchers, Christopher goes on, called the Sentinels, had already appeared in The Story Foreseen from Lorien. Now that's in The Treason of Isengard.
That's right.
There, of course, they were the Sentinels of Minas Morgul. Here, too, Gollum is speaking of Minas Morgul. At this point in the chapter, he has not even mentioned the existence of Cirith Ungol. It would seem rather odd that my father should bring in these references to the Silent Watchers of Minas Morgul if he had already decided that the actual encounter with Silent Watchers should be at the Tower of Cirith Ungol. And one might suspect, therefore, that when he wrote them into the text, the idea of that tower had not yet arisen. But this is the merest conjecture. It's reasonable conjecture, though, I got to say, Christopher, I agree with you.
It is. I mean, look, if anybody's going to conjecture well, it's going to be Christopher.
Right? You think. Yeah.
And he follows up this discussion in the text with an endnote, saying, even if this was so, that being Tolkien having decided Frodo and Sam would encounter the Watchers at Cirith Ungol, not Minas Morgul,
right.
It cannot be supposed that my father still thought that Frodo and Sam would enter Minas Morgul and encounter the Silent Watchers there.
Right.
The outline with which the draft text ends would obviously have said so if that had been in his mind. Moreover, not long after, in his letter of 30 April 1944, and that's number 64 in the published letters, he said that in the chapter next to be done, they will get to Cirith Ungol, and Frodo will be caught.
Spoilers.
Spoilers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously that's where we're dealing with things, not here at Minas Morgul. Right.
Right. And you got to love that, only Christopher Tolkien is going to have that inside scoop of like, oh yeah, and by the way, he wrote me a letter in April of 1944 where he told me this is what's going on.
That's right. Wow.
So really fascinating stuff. Always great commentary in the history of Middle-earth. But that, folks, is unfortunately all we could find about that particular oddity.
That's right.
And as for the Watchers themselves, well, have patience. We'll get there soon enough.
We will. Far too soon if you're Frodo and Sam, yeah.
And speaking of far too soon, I think Gollum is going to go on now and tell them a little bit more. Why don't you go ahead and read the next bit?
Hobbits must see, must try to understand. He can't see everything all at once, not yet. You see, he has conquered all the country west of the shadowy mountains, down to the river, and he holds the bridges now. He thinks no one can come to the Moon Tower without fighting big battle at the bridges, or getting lots of boats which they cannot hide, and he will know about.
You seem to know a lot about what he's doing and thinking, said Sam. Have you been talking to him lately? Or just hobnobbing with orcs?
Not nice, Hobbit. Not sensible,
said Gollum, giving Sam an angry glance and turning to Frodo.
Smeagol has talked to orcs, yes, of course, before he met Master, and to many peoples. He has walked very far. And what he says now many peoples are saying, it's here in the north that the big danger is for him, and for us. He will come out of the Black Gate one day soon. That is the only way big armies can come. But away down west, he's not afraid. And there are the silent Watchers.
Just so, said Sam, not to be put off. And so are we to walk up and knock at their gate and ask if we're on the right road for Mordor? Or are they too silent to answer? It's not sense. We might as well do it here and save ourselves a long tramp.
Don't make jokes about it,
hissed Gollum.
It isn't funny, oh no. Not amusing. It's not sense to try and get into Mordor at all. But if Master says, I must go, or I will go, he must try some way. But he must not go to the terrible city. Oh no, of course not. That is where Smeagol helps. Nice Smeagol, though no one tells him what it is all about. Smeagol helps again. He found it. He knows it.
All right. Well,
I get 20 minutes to recover. All right.
That's right. I'll get the next Smeagol dialogue and you can gargle.
Woof.
Going back to the bit that you skipped, which was Sam, you need to skip more Gollum and you need to read more Sam.
I know, believe me. I almost said, I'll read a couple lines and then skip a little bit, brother. But
exactly. And Saint Attila. Yeah, okay. We don't have time for that. So yeah, Sam, with his usual snark, which is escalating.
With every line of his. Yeah.
Pretty much, yeah. He's kind of annoying me, actually.
A little bit.
I mean, look, I know. He knows Gollum is evil. He heard the whole argument. I get it.
It's pretty clear, yeah.
But it's like, Sam, dude, come on. Anyway, with his usual snark, Sam basically, sarcastically confirms, oh, that's your advice, right? To take a long march and end up in a worse situation.
Right, exactly. And Gollum is like, look, you got to understand. Can you open your eyes, Sam? Sauron can't see everywhere at once yet, so he pays attention to some places more than he does to others. And he's got Ithilien completely under control, all the way down to the Anduin, as well as the bridges themselves.
That's right. And Sauron knows, or Sauron thinks at least, that nobody can attack the Moon Tower without a big party. Party at the Moon Tower. Full kegs. Everybody's going to be there.
Oh, boy.
Sorry, I can't do Matthew McConaughey.
No, you can't actually, but the point was still made.
Terrible McConaughey. But as the resident Austinite, I have to make a Dazed and Confused reference when we talk about the Moon Tower.
That's what I figured. You kind of had to. As an Austin resident, that's a requirement.
They'll kick me out if I don't.
They will? Do they kick you out? Is this like the bats thing too, or you have to like the bats?
You got to like the bats, and you got to at least hang out at the Moon Tower once.
And you have to have a Willie Nelson album.
You do, yeah.
Oh, man.
Even if you just have it on
there
CD.
After all. I hear it's great, but sorry, I'm out of luck.
Yeah, so no, not that kind of Moon Tower, not the kind we have here in Austin. It's Minas Ithil, right? Minas Ithil or Minas Morgul. He thinks nobody can attack the Moon Tower without either a big battle or a bunch of boats.
Right, because how would you? You can't get there unless you come across the Anduin. Which either means a big battle at Osgiliath or boats, right?
Right. And so the implication that Gollum's making here is like, just us three little guys, our secret little journey would go completely unnoticed.
Now, look, is it just me, or does it seem a bit surprising that Gollum would understand and observe all this? I mean, he's just one guy. He's not a strategic genius. He's not a general. He's not moving troops around. How does he know all this? And why? Why does he care?
That's a good question. I mean, yeah, I don't know.
He seems a little bit too knowledgeable here.
You think he's operating on some knowledge that he picked up from Sauron somewhere along the way?
Maybe, or from the orcs. I mean, I'm thinking of this in two contexts, right? Story-wise, within the context of the universe, why is it that Gollum knows all this stuff?
Right.
Literature-wise, I understand. Tolkien is using him to give us the details that we need to know.
That we need, yeah.
But it does seem a little weird coming from him. I just because I can't imagine Gollum really knowing or caring about all this.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, the only thing I can think is maybe Gollum has enough experience sneaking around places.
That's true.
He knows that, a big fortification like that is going to be paying attention to big armies, is not going to notice one skulking little hobbit. So it's probably not going to notice three skulking little hobbits.
That's fair, especially if two of them have elven cloaks. Yeah.
That's true too. So that's all I can think it might be. Yeah. He does have a little bit of experience in that, but you're right. I mean, when he's talking about big battle or boats, I mean, that does seem a bit more strategically minded than
like he understands strategy and tactics, and he understands, military action in a way that I would never have expected Gollum to. He's a little smarter than I think we've given him credit for, right? He knows his history.
Yeah. He has these moments, doesn't he? These kind of like moments of lucidity.
It's also, I just realized now, stuff he's listening in on, right? What do we say partway through this? And what he says now, many people are saying, talking about himself.
Oh, that's a good point.
What I'm saying now, many people are saying it's here in the north, the big danger is for him. So as he's sneaking around in populated areas, populated not by orcs, but by, the people of the West, he's hearing these conversations about, oh man, it's the north of Mordor that's the danger, that sort of thing. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. That's an interesting observation. It does seem strange that Gollum would know all this stuff, and Sam certainly thinks it's strange.
Yeah,
going back to the text. I mean, Sam basically just pretty much accuses him of actually talking to Sauron and hanging out with orcs.
Hobnobbing with orcs.
Hobnobbing with orcs. Now, in a draft of this chapter, Sam actually started with a bit that in the published version comes a little bit later. And this is where he says, I dare say, but even so, we can't walk up along your climbing road and pass the time of day with the folk at the gates and ask if we're all right for the Dark Tower. Stands to reason, said Sam. We might as well do it here and save ourselves a long tramp.
It's interesting that he moved that, because that does give a little bit more context for what he says in a bit, huh?
Yeah, it does.
Interesting.
Yeah. But for now, Gollum gives Sam an angry look.
Again.
And turns to Frodo, calls him not nice hobbit, not sensible.
Nice, not sensible.
And turns to Frodo to explain, I mean, Sam's
I'll turn to the guy who's making the decisions here. I'm talking to the decision maker.
That's right. I'm going above you, sir.
That's right. He's like full-blown Karen now. I want to talk to your manager.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Sam's not being sensible, right? He's not even being nice. He's actually being straight up rude.
Yeah, he is. You're right. He really is.
But again, at the risk of repeating myself, he did hear Gollum talking to himself, so he does have reason to be suspicious.
Yes, he does. And then Gollum makes a point. I have talked to orcs. I've talked to a lot of people. And really, it's not relevant and probably not your business.
He's about to go full politician there.
I've
talked to orcs. I've talked to a lot of people, and they all say the same thing.
I've shaken a lot of hands, kissed a lot of babies, and they all say the same thing. We need our money to go further.
I was talking to one orc in Peoria, Illinois. Shagra was his name.
He was complaining about high taxes.
That's right. And he lost his job at the factory. And anyway.
That's right. And he needs free health care. Yeah. Oh, man. And this is why we don't do politics on this show.
That's exactly right. But man, if we could see if we could do a Middle Earth political debate between I don't know, a couple of Middle Earth characters, maybe
let's do a full-blown primary and have 7 or 8 characters on the platform at once, right?
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
We could do a primary. We could have our listeners vote in the primaries, and then we could bring it down to 2, and we could do a debate with each one of us,
right? Yeah,
voicing one of them.
Oh, that's hilarious.
That is a terrible idea, and now it's out there. Now it's been recorded.
It is, and now somebody's going to make us do it. That's going to be the $500 tier. Therefore, nobody's going to want it. Yeah. No, I'm kidding. I'm not going to. All right. So, yeah, he reiterates, look, it's in the north that the danger is, both for Sauron and for us, right?
That's right. I mean, and he will come out of the Black Gate. Yeah. That's the only place where a big army can march through.
I'm going to need a judge's ruling on that. That doesn't end up being true, does it? A large army comes out of the gate of Minas Morgul in just a few chapters. The quote from the text is, so great an army had never issued from that vale since the days of Isildur's might. No host so fell and strong in arms had yet assailed the fords of Anduin.
So again, Gollum, not exactly a brilliant strategist.
So he knows some things, but he also doesn't know some things.
Exactly. Yeah. But it's still true that Sauron basically just isn't afraid of an enemy coming from the west.
No, he really isn't, because he knows the river and the boats in Osgiliath. Plus, silent watchers.
They know. They know. And then Sam says here what Tolkien had him saying sooner in that earlier draft. It's worded a little bit differently, right? And he adds this line, or are they too silent to answer? Which to me sounds like he's mocking Gollum.
Classic Sam, yes.
Silent watchers. Are they too silent to answer?
That's right. Wow. Man.
Gollum, unsurprisingly, is not laughing.
No, Gollum is not amused. He does not find the humor in this. Nope. And he gets back in Sam's face. Look, it doesn't make any sense at all for you to be going to Mordor, right? Sam says that, it's not sense, right?
That's right. Sam says it's not sense. Gollum's like, none of this is sense,
None of this. Getting into Mordor is not sense, you idiot. But if Frodo says I'm going, my job is to try to find him a way.
But do not go to Minas Morgul, right? Do not go to the terrible city.
Go buy it, but do not go to it, right? This is like Monopoly. You can go on the jail corner, but you don't actually go to jail.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And that's where Gollum once again offers his help. Like,
quote, help.
Air quotes help. Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, he found it. He knows it, right?
He knows what, right? But yeah, first he reiterates that he doesn't know why. I love this. I help, even though nobody tells me why, and it'd be pretty nice to know why. I'd kind of like to know why. Does anybody want to tell me why while we're here?
Nobody tells me anything. I just work here.
That's right. Then he says he found it. He knows it. Once again, Smeagol not being very clear. But that's where Frodo's going to get in, and that's where I'm going to have you pick up.
All right. What did you find? Asked Frodo. Gollum crouched down, and his voice sank to a whisper again.
A little path leading up into the mountains, and then a stair, a narrow stair. Oh yes, very long and narrow, and then more stairs, and then...
His voice sank even lower.
A tunnel, a dark tunnel, and at last a little cleft, and a path high above the main pass. It was that way that got Smeagol out of the darkness. But it was years ago. The path may have vanished now. But perhaps not, perhaps not.
I don't like the sound of it at all, said Sam. Sounds too easy at any rate in the telling. If that path is still there, it'll be guarded too. Wasn't it guarded, Gollum? As he said this, he caught, or fancied he caught, a green gleam in Gollum's eye. Gollum muttered, but did not reply. Is it not guarded? Asked Frodo sternly. And did you escape out of the darkness, Smeagol? Were you not rather permitted to depart upon an errand? That at least is what Aragorn thought, who found you by the dead marshes some years ago.
It's a lie!
Hissed Gollum, and an evil light came into his eyes at the naming of Aragorn.
He lied on me. Yes, he did. I did escape, all by my poor self. Indeed, I was told to seek for the precious, and I have searched and searched. Of course I have. But not for the black one. The precious was ours. It was mine, I tell you. I did escape.
Frodo felt a strange certainty that in this matter Gollum was for once not so far from the truth as might be suspected. That he had somehow found a way out of Mordor, and at least believed that it was by his own cunning. For one thing, he noted that Gollum used I, and that seemed usually to be a sign, on its rare appearances, that some remnants of old truth and sincerity were for the moment on top. But even if Gollum could be trusted on this point, Frodo did not forget the wiles of the enemy. The escape may have been allowed or arranged, and well known in the Dark Tower, and in any case, Gollum was plainly keeping a good deal back. "I ask you again," he said, "is not this secret way guarded?"
It's a good question. And
Very good question.
Gollum seems to be pretty hesitant to answer it. So,
Yeah, getting a bit defensive.
But I think that's why Frodo jumps in here, right? Going back to the beginning of the passage you read. Sam has been asking questions, but now Frodo asks what Gollum found. And he does get an answer, doesn't he?
He does. He does. And Gollum actually gets smaller as he explains this. He both physically as he crouches down, but then also his voice sinks to a whisper.
Yeah.
He's clearly intimidated by something here as he's describing this.
Mm-hmm.
And he talks about this small path growing up and a narrow and very long stair, and then some stairs,
and
then some more stairs,
right?
And then some stairs. And then after the stairs, there's some stairs.
That's right. And then after some more stairs, he gets even quieter. And he mentions the dark tunnel, followed by the cleft, which is just an opening, and a path, which is actually located above the main pass.
And then we get to this very interesting bit that he adds about how this is how he had once escaped years before.
Escaped, you say?
Escaped, you say?
Recall back in the Council of Elrond when Aragorn was answering Boromir's question about Gollum. And that question was, to what doom did you put him? Aragorn talked about how the fear of Sauron was on him. He suffered much, and he could work much mischief still if he weren't safely in the jails of the Elven King. Good thing they're secure, right? Aragorn wraps that section up by saying, and I do not doubt that he was allowed to leave Mordor on some evil errand.
Reasonable, but that's still a some say sort of thing, isn't it?
That's true. I do not doubt. Aragorn doesn't have any evidence. He's just going on a hunch.
Right. He's just, that's what he thinks.
Yeah.
But how about some proof?
Mm-hmm.
Well, near the end of this season, we're going to get some. We're going to meet a couple of charming fellows by the names of Gorbag and Shagrat.
They should run. They should run for office.
Gorbag, Shagrat, 2022. Yeah.
I'm thinking, which one of them is going to be the presidential candidate? Which one's the vice presidential candidate? They're going to fight about that all day long.
Oh, they will. They'll probably end up killing each other before the general election.
Anyway,
and I guess that would be 2024, wouldn't it? Not 22. But hey, I can't keep track. I can't keep track anymore.
Orc elections might not follow our own cycle.
There you go. I'm going to go with that.
Yeah.
It feels like it's always an election cycle. So
it does, doesn't it? Yeah.
But anyway, so in one of their conversations, Shagrat talks about Gollum, saying, "He's been up here." That's up the pass. "Before. Came out of Lugburs the first time, years ago. And we had word from high up to let him pass."
Okay. Well, in Unfinished Tales in the Hunt for the Ring, we read that when he had learned what he could from Gollum, Sauron released him and sent him forth again. He did not trust Gollum, but Sauron perceived the depth of Gollum's malice towards those that had robbed him, and guessing that he would go in search of them to avenge himself, Sauron hoped that his spies would thus be led to the ring. So escape might be putting it a bit strongly.
Yeah, I think so. And Sam finds all this a bit hard to believe, or at least that it's too good to be true.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, if the path is still there, it's got to be guarded just like the main road. And then he asks Gollum if it's guarded.
And Gollum doesn't respond to that, but Sam thinks he catches a green gleam in his eye. And I just want to use that as a chance to remind you all what we've discovered from before. That green gleam is when Gollum, not Smeagol, is in control.
That's right.
Yeah, and that dates all the way back to The Hobbit.
That's absolutely right. And then Frodo follows up with the same question. And he adds the question about Gollum's alleged escape. Are you sure you escaped? And then that's when he says, look, Aragorn believed that, after he captured you, he believed that you had actually been let go.
Yeah, it might not have been best to mention Aragorn, though. That might have been a tactical error.
Yeah, that's when Gollum gets crazy defensive.
Boy, doesn't he? Yeah.
And then he starts claiming Aragorn lied about him. Says, yeah, I did too escape. And okay, I was told to search for the ring.
Yeah. And of course I have searched, right? But for myself, not for Sauron. And here he reiterates his ownership, right? His claim on the ring saying, it was ours. It was mine, I tell you.
And Frodo believes him, okay.
Yeah.
At least to an extent. I mean, he believes that Gollum at least thought he escaped.
Yeah.
He didn't go looking for the ring for Sauron.
Right. I mean, we may know that Gollum didn't actually escape, that he was allowed to escape. But Frodo observes, from Gollum's perspective, he escaped. Gollum believes he legitimately did so.
Exactly, and that's where Frodo's just shrewder than Gollum here. Gollum doesn't realize that he's been a pawn on Sauron's chessboard here. But, one of the reasons that Frodo believes him is because of the use of I. We're actually told this by the text. And we've talked about this before, that when Smeagol or Gollum refers to himself as I, that does usually seem to be one of the indicators that it's actually Smeagol in control.
That's right.
And that he's being honest, or at least more honest than Gollum.
Well, I mean, granted, that's a low bar, but yeah. And even though he believes this claim to be true in Smeagol's eyes, he knows that he's still holding back information, so he presses the question again. Now, though, Gollum won't answer, right? And he's just pouting and acting all injured. You don't believe me. I don't want to argue.
You said
We've never heard that,
the
have
A
we?
word,
Yeah, exactly. You've used the A word, so I'm not going to talk to you anymore. But now Frodo asks the question for a fourth time. Well, it's the fourth time the question is asked. Frodo's asked it 3 times after Sam asked it once. So now we've got to get an answer.
And Gollum finally says, okay, yes, well, maybe.
Right.
Sure. But I mean, there's no safe places around here.
No, there's not. But I mean, if you want to go in, that's what you've got to try. There's no other way. That or this big gate that we're standing in front of.
Right. And any efforts to get him to try and give them any further information, at this point, they're getting nothing. He can't, or he just won't name the place that they're headed towards.
That's a very good point. I wonder whether it's can't or won't. I don't know.
I think it's won't.
Yeah, he must know.
I have to think it's won't. I mean, then again, I don't know. I mean, he doesn't really tend to use the Elvish terms, does he? Like does he say Minas Ithil? No, he says the Tower of the Moon Tower. Party at the Moon Tower. Sorry.
You're right. Party at the Moon Tower. Yeah, you're right. He just calls it the Tower of the Moon and the Moon Tower. Yeah, he doesn't call it Minas Ithil.
But maybe he has a name for this place.
I was going to say.
Is a translation of its Elvish name, which we'll talk about in a minute.
Yes, we will. But I guess first we got to read it, right?
But we're going to get the name right now as Alan reads the next passage.
Its name was Cirith Ungol, a name of dreadful rumor. Aragorn could perhaps have told them that name and its significance. Gandalf would have warned them. But they were alone, and Aragorn was far away. And Gandalf stood amid the ruin of Isengard and strove with Saruman, delayed by treason. Yet even as he spoke his last words to Saruman, and the Palantir crashed in fire upon the steps of Orthanc, his thought was ever upon Frodo and Samwise. Over the long leagues his mind sought for them in hope and pity. Maybe Frodo felt it, not knowing it, as he had upon Amon Hen, even though he believed that Gandalf was gone forever into the shadow in Moria, far away. He sat upon the ground for a long while, silent, his head bowed, striving to recall all that Gandalf had said to him. But for this choice, he could recall no counsel. Indeed, Gandalf's guidance had been taken from them too soon, while the Dark Land was still very far away. How they should enter it at the last, Gandalf had not said. Perhaps he could not say. Into the stronghold of the enemy in the north, into Dol Guldur, he had once ventured. But into Mordor? To the Mountain of Fire, into Barad-dûr? Since the Dark Lord rose in power again, had he ever journeyed there? Frodo did not think so. And here he was, a little halfling from the Shire, a simple hobbit of the quiet countryside, expected to find a way where the great ones could not go, or dared not go. It was an evil fate. But he had taken it on himself, in his own sitting room, in the far-off spring of another year, so remote now that it was like a chapter in a story of the world's youth, when the trees of silver and gold were still in bloom. This was an evil choice. Which way should he choose? And if both led to terror and death, what good lay in choice? Wow.
There is a lot to unpack there.
Boy, isn't there?
Yeah. I know we say that a lot, but man, there's a lot there.
There is a ton, including a couple things I didn't even put in the notes.
No, but I know what you're talking about, and we'll get to them. Let's go back to the beginning, and right at the beginning there, we got that name, right? Cirith Ungol.
Yes.
And That's Sindarin for, spoilers, folks, Cleft of the Spider.
I'm sure you're all surprised.
I'm sure. Wonder why it's called that. I don't know. I guess we'll see.
Ungol. Where have we seen that before?
We have seen that before. All right. Yeah. Well, we'll get to it. First, let's talk about Kiddith.
Yeah.
Kiddith means cleft or pass. That is Sindarin. Mm-hmm. And I think we only see Kiddith Ungol and Kiddith Gorgor in Lord of the Rings.
That's correct. But if we look back to the Silmarillion, we also see the Cirith Niniac, which is the rainbow cleft, and Cirith Thoranath, which is the eagle's cleft.
That's right. And also in the Silmarillion, we get a Quenya form of Kiddith, which is Kirya in Kala-Kirya, the cleft of light.
That's right.
Yeah. And then we've got Ungol, which means spider. And obviously, anybody who's read the Silmarillion is immediately going to think of Ungoliant.
Yes.
Right? The great big spider, the mother of all spiders, literally.
Mm-hmm. In this corner, weighing in at 379 kilograms, with 8 arms and a temper to match, Ungoliant.
The unlight from Avatar, the mother of all spiders.
That's right. Give it up for Ungoliant.
And then suddenly you hear all the 8-armed fans clapping out there for her.
The rhythm that they must be able to maintain. It must sound like just a million people clapping.
Yep.
Yeah. And then suddenly falling silent. Oh, wait. Now I've just mixed our fandom.
You kind of went into a weird Star Wars reference there.
No, exactly. It was as if a million people clapped and then suddenly fell silent.
I have to rest.
Well, then we get this really pleasant aside, right? The one addressing Aragorn and Gandalf. I love this moment. And it's why we didn't do a Meanwhile Elsewhere Middle-earth last week.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's all right here, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, first we're told that Aragorn could have told them the name and meaning if he was here.
Of course. He knows enough of Sindarin to know. Yeah.
Right. And then the fact that Gandalf would have warned them.
Yeah, of course.
Which doesn't sound good.
No, but that's when we get the update on where Gandalf and Aragorn are in particular at this point in Isengard, as Gandalf is battling with Saruman here.
But even as they do, we're told that Gandalf's thoughts are with Frodo and Sam.
Yeah.
Right? And it's kind of crazy to consider that we're almost all the way through the events of Book 3, even though we're just getting started with Book 4.
You're right. We're only in the 3rd chapter of Book 4, I should say.
Yeah. And we're basically up to the Palantir chapter. We are literally up to the Palantir chapter.
Yeah.
And, when Tom Shippey talks about Tolkien's use of interlace in this book, he does kind of talk about how he kind of leapfrogs. And
he does. It's true.
Yeah, we have leapfrogged straight past the end of Book 3, and now we're moving into new territory, which is pretty exciting.
It really is. That's true. We are moving into a new timeline. Yeah.
Yeah. But let's talk about this idea that Gandalf's thoughts are with Frodo and Sam, right? What does that mean exactly?
I think we want to touch on that a little bit because, when we think about, my thoughts are with you or I'm thinking about you, that just means that our minds are dwelling on somebody.
Sure.
But Gandalf is doing something that you and I can't do. His mind is actively seeking for Frodo and Sam.
Yeah.
In hope and pity.
That's right. He's looking for some information about them, some sort of Osanwe that he's using here.
Exactly. He's reaching out for them. Yeah. And I love that.
And then
especially the hope and pity bit, right? I mean, he's hoping to find them because obviously he wants the news that they're still alive, but also in pity because he knows that if they are, it's not going to be
they're going through
happy
something
times.
Very bad. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we go back to Frodo in the next paragraph. And it seems that Frodo may actually be touched by Gandalf's thoughts, right? Maybe Frodo felt it, not knowing it.
Maybe.
And he's here, he's silent, sitting on the ground. He's trying to remember what Gandalf had taught him, even though, as far as he knows, Gandalf is gone.
That's right. And yet the text does tell us that he felt that same presence back when he was on Amon Hen. And you remember that at the end of last book.
That's right, yeah.
When we hear Sauron's voice, at least presumably so, about the ring, and Gandalf, telling him, "Take it off, you fool."
Right.
We knew that was Gandalf, but as far as Frodo knows, that's like a recollection of Gandalf or what he thinks Gandalf would have said had he been there. And yet we know
exactly right.
Gandalf says, "I was struggling with Sauron."
Yeah. Right,
I was there in power. Yeah.
I was there, Gandalf.
3,000 years ago. Oh, man.
Yeah, but then we're told that, even with all this, for this choice, Frodo can't remember what, if any, counsel Gandalf gave him for this. And he laments, as he should, the fact that Gandalf was taken from them too soon.
Way too soon. He'd never told them how they would actually enter Mordor. And the fact is, maybe he didn't know a way either. Like maybe Frodo thinks, sure, he'd made it into Dol Guldur, but that is not the same as Mordor.
No. And do we have any reason to believe that Gandalf has ever gone there to Mordor?
No.
Frodo certainly thinks he hasn't.
And there's no reason to expect that he has. Right. And yet Frodo has to do something that these great ones, right? Gandalf, Aragorn, Elrond. Well, Elrond has been in Mordor at the end of the Second Age, but Frodo here is having to do something that these great ones could not or would not do.
And then I love this next part because we're reminded of Frodo's roots, right?
Yes.
A simple hobbit of the quiet countryside. I mean,
that is who he is.
To me, this sounds like the first steps before a big ennoblement.
Boy, doesn't it? You're right. That should give you a clue that a big ennoblement is coming. And Frodo reminds himself of his decision to take on this fate, this evil fate, as he points out. It could have been that he would think back and say that he put this, took this fate on himself when he accepted the quest at the Council of Elrond and said, I will take the ring to Mordor. But no, he recognizes he took on this fate even a long time before that, in the sitting room, in the far off spring of another year, in his own home. And he did it to protect the Shire.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So remote that it feels to him like a story of the First Age, a story of when Telperion and Laurelin were still in bloom.
Thank you for naming them. Yes, the trees of silver and gold. This is another one of those moments where the First Age sort of leaks through onto the pages of The Lord of the Rings. And I love it.
I absolutely love it because, there's really no reason to mention the two trees here. There's no specific reference. We're not talking about the sun and the moon. We're not talking about that story specifically. It's just brought up very casually that this decision Frodo made feels as long ago as this ancient story. And I love it. It really adds to that depth, doesn't it?
It does.
And this is a textual ruin if you've only read Lord of the Rings.
It's absolutely a textual ruin. And, Laurelin is not mentioned in the Lord of the Rings at all. Telperion is when they talk about the trees, about the white tree, because it was a fruit of Galathylia and a fruit of Telperion and so on.
Right.
Other than that, it's only in the index where Laurelin is mentioned as well. But in the story itself, neither one is properly mentioned in that way.
Yeah. So this is a great textual ruin. And it just reminds us that, these are the stories that Frodo grew up with, thanks to Bilbo, I'm sure. And it just fills in the richness of this world. It reminds us that there is history here. And it's a wonderful hyperbole. It felt as long ago as the beginning of the First Age,
Yeah, we might say, oh man, that feels like it was 1,000,000 years ago. That's nothing.
Right.
This is,
exactly.
This is a much more vivid description, a much more artful description. And I love it.
Yeah.
It puts me in mind of all those other little textual ruins. And my favorite, of course, is the one when Theoden is charging at the Battle of the Pelennor Fields, and we see the comparison to Orome. Oh,
it's wonderful. It is wonderful.
And somebody reading this when it first came out, what do you mean when the trees of silver and gold were still?
Yeah,
what is he talking about?
What does that even mean?
Yes. You'll find out in 1977 when the Silmarillion was published, right? You got to wait 20 years. I love it.
And that's where I'm so thankful that I was able to read the Silmarillion right after this. Although honestly, I know we've talked to people who did have to wait years.
Right.
They
people who read the Lord of the Rings when it came out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And so they did have to wait. And so all they could do was wonder.
Yeah.
And man, how cool is that too? To just be able to imagine what these trees of silver and gold might be.
To maybe let it go as just this textual ruin, and then one day read about the trees of silver and gold.
Boom. Oh, that's what it is.
Oh, now I get it. Wow. Yeah. How wonderful is that? It really is.
Super cool.
Yeah.
But back to this paragraph, I guess, because I'd love to linger on that all day. But
of course.
We've got to get back to Frodo's choice here, right? Yeah. And he doesn't know. What should he choose? And wow, what's the good in choosing if the end result is the same?
Boy, isn't that a really grim but accurate insight?
It is.
If I go here to this main gate of Mordor, I'm going to be captured and taken to Sauron. If I try to sneak in at Minas Morgul, I'm going to be captured and taken to Sauron. If both lead to terror and death, why make a decision?
I think Beowulf could answer that question.
I think Beowulf can answer that question, yes.
You know, like if I'm old, I'm going to die. I can either just die sitting here on my throne, or I can go out and fight a dragon and die.
Yeah. That's a fair point.
You go out and you fight the dragon. Now, this is a little different, right?
This is. I mean, he's not looking at like one heroic death versus a non-heroic death. He's looking at both cases leading to capture and torture by Sauron.
Right. Yeah.
In which case, just get it over with and go into this front door.
That's a fair point.
Right?
That's a fair point.
But yeah, I mean, I guess what he eventually will do is we will see when he makes the decision to go south is, well, there's got to be a higher chance of success there than there is here, because there's zero chance of success here.
Right. Exactly. It's like, where do you have a chance? Where do you have some hope?
I mean, sure, maybe I only increase my odds from 1 in a billion to 1 in a million, but that's 1,000 times better. And I will take that journey in order to increase my chance of success. Yeah.
Any hope for success is better than none.
That's right. Absolutely.
And that's what he's got to cling to.
Well, we're going to skip a few paragraphs. We've actually touched on one of these paragraphs earlier, the whole idea about the hypothetical eagle looking down on these three people in the dell and seeing the tiny figure sprawling on the ground without, no flesh worth a peck. Great line. But I'm going to have you pick up right after that as Frodo begins to make his decision.
Frodo's head was bowed over his knees, but Sam leaned back, with hands behind his head, staring out of his hood at the empty sky. At least for a long while it was empty. Then presently Sam thought he saw a dark, bird-like figure wheel into the circle of his sight, and hover, and then wheel away again. 2 more followed, and then a 4th. They were very small to look at, yet he knew, somehow, that they were huge, with a vast stretch of pinion, flying at a great height. He covered his eyes and bent forward, cowering. The same warning fear was on him as he had felt in the presence of the Black Riders, the helpless horror that had come with the cry in the wind and the shadow on the moon. Though now it was not so crushing or compelling. The menace was more remote. But menace it was. Frodo felt it too. His thought was broken. He stirred and shivered, but he did not look up. Gollum huddled himself together like a cornered spider. The winged shapes wheeled and stooped swiftly down, speeding back to Mordor. Sam took a deep breath. "The riders are about again, up in the air," he said in a hoarse whisper. "I saw them. Do you think they could see us? They were very high up. And if they are black riders, same as before, then they can't see much by daylight, can they?" "No, perhaps not," said Frodo. "But their steeds could see. And these winged creatures that they ride on now, they can probably see more than any other creature. They are like great carrion birds. They are looking for something. The enemy is on the watch, I fear." The feeling of dread passed, but the enfolding silence was broken. For some time they had been cut off from the world, as if in an invisible island. Now they were laid bare again. Peril had returned.
Can I have a little bit of peril?
No, it's too perilous.
That's actually a really good place to stop in that reading, because it reminds us we've been here in this same spot this entire time. This discussion.
Wow. Yeah, you're right.
Has taken place all in this little place,
one spot
that they've been, looking over the gate, looking over the Mirandon, and they haven't gone anywhere. This is all just discussion in this place. And now.
That's true.
Yeah. Now that the feeling of dread has passed, they felt cut off before, and now that that's gone, now the danger, the very, very present danger, has come back. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. All right. Well, let's go back and talk about some of this.
Absolutely.
Going back to before I read the first paragraph that we skipped, we're told that the day goes on, right? As they lay in this hollow, like you're saying, they've been in this same hollow this entire time.
Yeah.
And Frodo's considering his decision that we were just talking about.
That's right. And we get that intense silence that falls on them. And that's where Frodo does feel like they've been kind of cut off from the world. They're in this little pocket. We even get this sort of smoke high above as well, too.
Mm-hmm. And we're told that even an eagle wouldn't have noticed them.
That's right.
Right?
Right.
So they're silent, they're not moving, and of course they're covered by their elven cloaks, at least
Which
two
helps.
of them.
Yeah, two of them are. I mean, that's why an eagle might notice Gollum, but he didn't have any flesh worth a peck. And of course, we touched on this very vivid description of Gollum back when he first appeared in the book this season.
That's right. Famished skeleton of some child of men with a ragged garment, because Gollum was not naked.
That's correct.
And then we get to the part that I did read. So Frodo has his head bowed over his knees. Sam is leaning back, looking up at the sky, and that is when Sam sees something. An eagle might not see them from the sky, but they sure are seeing something in the sky, aren't they?
They are indeed. And not just a something, but three somethings, and then even a fourth something. And they're far, far up. But because they're able to see them, even though they're that far away, they know the things they're looking at are huge.
Yeah. Yeah, that line about a vast stretch of pinion, that reminds me about the description that we get when the Witch King lands in the Battle of the Pelennor Fields, right?
Yeah.
And we get that it was a winged creature, if bird, then greater than all other birds, and it was naked, and neither quill nor feather did it bear, and its vast pinions were as webs of hide between horned fingers.
Oh, man. This is a creepy creature.
Yeah. And I guess here we should probably point out for folks who don't know that a pinion here, obviously it's not a gear, right? That's
no.
usually when you hear the word pinion these days, at least me, I tend to think of it as a gear.
Part of a machine, right?
Right. But in this case, a pinion is part of a bird's wing. It's the outer part of the bird's wing, including the flight feathers.
That's right.
If it has feathers, which of course.
Right. In this one, it does not.
Do not.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So Sam covers his eyes, cowering, and we read that he was struck with the same fear that he'd had when they'd encountered the Black Riders all the way back in the Shire, and the same horror that they just experienced a few days before when the wraiths on wings had flown over them in the marshes.
That's right. And it's thankfully now more remote, but it's still menacing. The effect is not as great, but the effect is there. And it's also felt by Frodo.
Yeah.
Who shivers but doesn't look up.
And obviously Gollum feels it as well. He huddles himself as small as he can.
Mm-hmm. And then the Nazgul stoop down and they're speeding back to Mordor, right?
Yeah, exactly. Trading elevation for speed at that point, yeah. Sam asks whether they could be seen by the Black Riders. You know, he observes they were very high up, and then he remembers, good Sam, that they don't see very well in the daylight, the Black Riders.
That's right, and Frodo agrees. You know, he acknowledges that, look, the riders themselves might not have seen us, but the winged creatures can see.
Yeah.
And we saw this all the way back when they were on horses, right? That it was always their steeds that did their seeing for them. And Frodo suspects that these creatures can probably actually see quite well.
Yeah. If they're birds of prey, yeah.
Exactly. I would imagine they probably could. And they are looking for something, which means that Sauron is on the watch.
I wonder, though, how do they communicate that they've seen something?
I don't know. I mean, how would the horses communicate that they've seen something? I don't know.
They would neigh and stomp their feet maybe, but I don't know. I wonder what these creatures do to
maybe
tell
these
the
things
Nazgul they've seen
shriek or
something. Yeah,
some sort of horrid bird
they
dinosaur
point the
noise.
wing a little bit.
Maybe they do a little semaphore. I don't know.
That's what I'm thinking. Smoke signals.
Yeah.
They send a text.
Sure. Why not?
Maybe they shoot a quick video and post it to TikTok. I don't know. I mean,
you sound
they're
so
modern. They're just modern creatures of
you kids
terror.
These days with your vast pinions and your Instagram and your TikTok. In my day, birds had feathers and they didn't use TikTok. They used smoke signals.
That's
Actually, in my day, Black Riders rode horses. They didn't even have birds.
That's right. Well, I remember when they didn't even have horses. They were just an Nazgul walking around really slowly.
And they had to walk uphill 3 miles in the snow to get to Nazgul school.
Each way.
Each way. Uphill both ways,
That's right.
however that
Uphill
works.
Both ways. I don't know, man. Physics, but yeah, pretty awesome stuff.
Oh, man.
I like the way you threw in pinions along with Instagram and TikTok. It makes me think that maybe I should start a new social media platform and just call it Vast Pinions.
Vast pinions. Somebody's going to think it's something else.
That's a very good point. I'm going to leave it there. All right.
It's got huge, vast pinions.
Oh, man. So the dread is gone. Not the dread of our next terrible joke. You'll dread that forever and ever as long as you're listening to the show. And the silence is broken. And now, like we talked about when we wrapped up this reading, they're very, very aware of their peril. They're very much on edge. Yeah.
Yeah. And Frodo appears to actually be on the edge of a decision.
Yeah, he does.
Then he stops when he hears a noise.
That's right.
And that's where you're going to pick up.
That is exactly where I'm going to pick up. A new fear was upon them. They heard singing and hoarse shouting. At first it seemed a long way off, but it drew nearer. It was coming towards them. It leaped into all their minds that the black wings had spied them and had sent armed soldiers to seize them. No speed seemed too great for these terrible servants of Sauron. They crouched, listening. The voices and the clink of weapons and harness were very close. Frodo and Sam loosened their small swords in their sheaths. Flight was impossible. Gollum rose slowly and crawled insect-like to the lip of the hollow. Very cautiously, he raised himself inch by inch until he could peer over it between two broken points of stone. He remained there without moving for some time, making no sound. Presently, the voices began to recede again, and then they slowly faded away. Far off, a horn blew on the ramparts of the Morannon. Then, quietly, Gollum drew back and slipped down into the hollow.
"More men going to Mordor," he said in a low voice. "Dark faces. We have not seen men like these before. No, Smeagol has not. They are fierce. They have black eyes and long black hair and gold rings in their ears. Yes, lots of beautiful gold. And some have red paint on their cheeks and red cloaks, and their flags are red, and the tips of their spears. And they have round shields, yellow and black with big spikes. Not nice, very cruel, wicked men they look, almost as bad as orcs, and much bigger. Smeagol thinks they have come out of the south beyond the great river's end. They came up that road. They have passed on to the Black Gate, but more may follow. Always more people coming to Mordor. One day, all the peoples will be inside."
Wow. Wow.
All right.
All the peoples will be inside.
That's
Yeah.
a bad feeling.
That's a very bad feeling. It's this overwhelming, inevitable victory.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we'll get to that. So let's go back to the beginning of that passage, right?
Yep, let's do that. So they hear singing and hoarse shouting.
Mm-hmm.
And this is this new fear. Oh man, what is that?
Yeah.
And although it's a long way off, they can tell that the singing and shouting is coming towards them.
That's not
and
good.
Yeah, I mean, what are they thinking here?
Well, I think their first thought is that the riders or the creatures they were on had seen them and had already sent an army to get them, right? The observation is that no speed seemed too great.
Right.
Which is interesting because it seemed the same way at the end of book 3 when Pippin looks into the Palantir, sees a Nazgul flying towards him, and then shortly after a Nazgul comes by. They're not the same one.
Right.
We already discussed that then.
Right, we talked about that.
It does seem like no speed is too great for these guys. Yeah.
I mean, these creatures, these servants of Sauron are so scary.
They're terrifying, yeah.
You're just thinking to yourself, I mean, what powers don't they have?
Yeah.
Sure, maybe they can fly at the speed of light. Who knows?
Yeah. I mean, they're seriously overpowered, so sure, why not?
Right.
So yeah, that's when they crouch and listen. Of course, they don't want to become visible. They don't want to look over the edge, right?
No, certainly. And then they hear the voices and they hear the sounds of weapons and armor clinking close by. And at this point, I mean, it's too late to run.
Oh, yeah.
So they're getting ready to fight at this point. Flight was impossible.
That's got to be terrifying. I mean, their hearts have got to be in their throats. The adrenaline is pumping. They're in fight or flight mode, and flight's not an option. So we know what mode they're in, right?
And that's kind of a blink and you miss it kind of thing, isn't it? Like,
It
I mean,
really
Tolkien just skates right past that.
Yeah.
Very matter of fact. Like,
That's true.
All right, this could be it.
They go from this very lengthy discussion about what their next move might be to, we're about to die here.
Yeah.
And we're going to put up as good a fight as we can, but we're outnumbered. There's an army out there, and there's 2.25 of us.
Right.
I mean, Gollum, I don't know. He'd put up a fight too, but it's not like he's armed. They didn't give him any elvish daggers. He wouldn't take one.
He can bite. He can throttle.
He can. Gollum, though, interestingly, is the one to go up and see what's happening. And he does it incredibly slowly, right? He's inching himself over the edge and peering between two little bumps of rock so that he can't be seen. Yeah.
That's interesting. And I think we're being subtly reminded that Gollum has been in situations like this before.
Oh, yeah.
He's been really close to...
He knows how to be stealthy. Yeah.
Exactly. And he's been really close to an enemy army because, everybody's Gollum's enemy. So
that's true.
He's been really close to an army like this before, and he knows how to stay there. And he does stay there without moving or making a sound.
Yeah.
Until finally the voices fade away,
mm-hmm.
and then a horn can be heard, and then that's when Gollum comes back and gives a report to the hobbits.
That could have taken a very long time, depending on the size of the army, that's for sure.
Could have, yeah.
Yeah. And he does report, look, it's men going to Mordor, men that Gollum has never seen before, and that's when we get the description. The dark faces, fierce, black eyes with long black hair, the gold rings, and some with war paint. We find out that their cloaks, flags, and spear tips are all red, but that their shields are yellow and black.
Yeah. And they appear, at least to Gollum, and I think this is very interesting, they appear very cruel and wicked.
I guess he would know, right? I mean, that's kind of my thinking.
I would think so. I mean, Gollum has spent time with orcs. He's spent time with men who are in Sauron's command.
Yeah.
I mean, then again, he thinks that the Gondorians and the elves of Mirkwood are cruel.
That's true. Yeah. But wicked, still, I don't think is a phrase.
That's true. Used. Wicked is not something that he uses to describe the good guys, I don't think. And it's interesting that they look almost as bad as orcs and much bigger.
Oh, yeah. Well, of course they're bigger. I mean, men are bigger than orcs.
Well, that's true. Yeah, good point.
As a general rule. But, the idea is, look, they look as evil as orcs. They look as fierce and, almost as bad as orcs. Except that they look even bigger because, well, they are. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that's really interesting, especially given that we're going to see in the next chapter, Sam have a very different reaction to seeing one of these people up close, right?
Yeah.
To Gollum, they're no different from orcs. They look as bad as orcs. They're no different. He can't even really tell the difference between them except that they're bigger. And I think it'll be really interesting when we see that wonderful moment where Sam looks at the fallen soldier.
Very poignant moment, yeah.
Yeah. So let's keep this in mind when we get there. I know it's going to be a few weeks. But...
It will. Yeah, that'll be worth it, though.
Yeah.
So then we get that observation I touched on at the end of that reading, this observation that more and more people are coming, and one day all the peoples will be inside. This is Gollum being a little fatalistic and talking about this sort of inevitable victory of Sauron over all the peoples, that they're going to be, he's going to be swallowing up all the nations and making them his servants. It's a terrifying thought.
And that's really interesting because on the surface of it, it just looks like, he's just talking about all the peoples who follow Sauron. One day they'll all report for battle and they'll be within the walls. But I think he's going further than that.
Yeah,
he's talking about how one day Sauron's dominion will stretch over all of Middle-earth.
All the peoples will be inside Mordor because he will have consumed all the kingdoms and conquered them all. Yeah. Right. But who are these people?
I'm going to tell you. These men are the Haradrim, or Southrons. Mm-hmm. And we'll try to do a full sidebar on them another time, probably when we get to that moment. Yeah, maybe when we get to them in a few episodes, because their background is fascinating. But I think right now we have to move on because we're running a little bit long and we've got Oliphants to get to.
Yes, we do.
Grey as a mouse, big as a house, nose like a snake, I make the earth shake as I tramp through the grass. Trees crack as I pass. With horns in my mouth I walk in the south, flapping big ears. Beyond count of years I stomp round and round. Never lie on the ground, not even to die. Oliphant am I, biggest of all, huge, old, and tall.
I love that. I can never get enough of him reading poetry.
Never, never, ever. And I hate to follow it, but I'm going to go ahead and pick up where Sam talks after the poem.
Okay.
That, said Sam when he had finished reciting, that's a rhyme we have in the Shire. Nonsense, maybe, and maybe not, but we have our tales too, and news out of the south, In the old days, hobbits used to go on their travels now and again. Not that many ever came back, and not that all they said was believed. News from Bree, and not sure as Shire talk, as the sayings go. But I've heard tales of the big folk down away in the Sunlands. Swertings we call them in our tales, and they ride on Oliphants, 'tis said, when they fight. They put houses and towers on the Oliphants' backs and all, and the Oliphants throw rocks and trees at one another. So when you said men out of the south, all in red and gold, I said, were there any Oliphants? For if there was, I was going to take a look, risk or no. But now I don't suppose I'll ever see an Oliphant. Maybe there ain't no such a beast. He sighed.
No Oliphants,
said Gollum again.
Smeagol has not heard of them. He does not want to see them. He does not want them to be. Smeagol wants to go away from here and hide somewhere safer. Smeagol wants Master to go. Nice Master, won't he come with Smeagol?
Frodo stood up. He had laughed in the midst of all his cares when Sam trotted out the old fireside rhyme of Oliphant, and the laugh had released him from hesitation. I wish we had 1,000 Oliphants, with Gandalf on a white one at their head, he said. Then we'd break away into this evil land, perhaps. But we've not. Just our own tired legs, that's all. Well, Smeagol, the third turn may turn the best. I will come with you.
All right, so we have the decision made.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I love this section. I really do, and I'm excited to dig in. So we'll go back to the beginning there. Sam asks if Gollum saw any Oliphants, who, of course, Gollum doesn't know what those things
What's
are.
That? Yeah.
And that, not surprisingly, leads to Sam reciting some poetry. I can almost hear Gollum saying, what is that? What are Oliphants? And Sam saying, I shall tell you in song form.
I'm just imagining Frodo saying, he's going to tell. He's going to tell. He's going to tell. He's going to tell.
There'll be no singing here. How about just some poetry recitation? All right, fine. Yeah.
So this wonderful little descriptive poem doesn't need a lot of analysis. I don't think we really have to do a whole lot. I mean, this is a pretty simple rhyming couplet poem. But we need to talk about the history because it does have a lot of history.
Uh-huh.
This is actually a shortened version of a poem that Tolkien wrote much earlier, and it's got the most wonderful title.
Yes.
It's called Yumbo, like Jumbo, but with an I instead of a J. Yumbo, or Ye Kind of Ye Oliphant, published in June 1927's Stapleton Magazine at Exeter College.
And that poem was part of a series called Adventures in Unnatural History and Medieval Meters, Being the Freaks of Physiologus, which, while not particularly relevant to our story, is such a cool title we had to find a way to mention it.
It's wonderful, and I think it's worth noting that longer poem, that actually became Fastatokalon, didn't it?
That's right, it did.
The Adventures of Tom Bombadil?
Yeah, uh-huh.
Yep. So if you got that, or if you got Tales from the Perilous Realm, you've got a version of that poem in there.
Yes, you do.
Now, this poem was inspired by the Medieval Bestiary. This is a popular medieval book about beasts or animals. I mean, these things were really popular in the Middle Ages. It was almost like an encyclopedia with illustrations and things like that. Not terribly scientifically accurate.
You had people coming door to door selling medieval bestiaries.
Probably. Probably. I mean, these were like one of the things that, they were really hugely popular. And they weren't exactly scientifically accurate.
They were as science as they could get back then, but yeah.
Sure, but a lot of it was just based on hearsay, all these mysterious animals from faraway lands.
Yeah.
And that explains, things like Tolkien including that reference about the Oliphant never lying on the ground, even to die.
Right.
Because in the medieval bestiary, the elephant is said to lean against a tree when it sleeps, and that if it falls down, it can't get back up.
Right. And apparently in the bestiary, it doesn't even have any joints in its knees. So, yeah.
And there are some weird pictures of them, too, that look nothing like elephants. But just like, basically somebody described it. Oh, it's got a long nose. Okay, and it's got horns. And then you get some weird abomination.
Total abomination. It's like a thing like an elephant. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, letter number 64, which was written to Christopher Tolkien in 1944, has more to say about the Oliphant. In the letter, Tolkien describes a moment that we will get to in Ithilien shortly. A large elephant of prehistoric size, a war elephant of the Swartings, is loose. And Sam has gratified a lifelong wish to see an Oliphant, an animal about which there was a Hobbit nursery rhyme, though it was commonly supposed to be mythical.
And he then goes on to actually write out the entire rhyme to Christopher.
Yeah.
Adding that he hopes it has something of the nursery rhyme flavor.
I think it does.
I think it certainly does. Now, we probably should do a little bit of word nerdery while we're here.
Of course we should.
Of course. We actually discussed this back in the postscript to episode 182, so not everybody's going to have heard this. But
no, it's true. Our P5s, by the way, folks, are our Prancing Pony Podcast Patreon postscript. So
that's the ones, yep.
That's where we spend about 10 minutes or so going into deeper detail on one or two details from the show in the postscript for our Patreon supporters.
That's right. And back in the postscript to 182, that was when Boromir blew his horn.
Yes.
We talked in the postscript about how the word Oliphant was a word that was used for Roland's ivory horn in the Song of Roland, and that this was a common medieval pronunciation of the word elephant.
That's right.
In the nomenclature, Tolkien goes a little bit further on this word. He says, it is an archaic form of elephant, used as a rusticism, on the supposition that rumor of the southern beast would have reached the Shire long ago in the form of legend. He then goes on with some etymology. He says, Oliphant in English is derived from Old French Oliphant, with an F instead of a PH, but the O is probably derived from old forms of English or German, Old English Olfend, Old High German Olbenta, which actually means camel.
Oh, wow.
Which are probably ultimately related to the classical elephant, Latin from Greek. And Tolkien would have known that the original Greek word elephas, which elephant comes from, actually meant ivory or elephant.
Of course he would, yeah. So Sam then talks about the origins of that rhyme, and, it's perhaps their own news out of the South, right? He's talking about Gollum's mention earlier about the tales that he heard when he was a kid. Well, Sam's got the same thing. And he mentioned, though, of course, that hobbits did used to travel sometimes.
Yeah, and when they came back, which wasn't often.
Well, that's creepy,
right? I mean, it's creepy.
How many travelers did we lose this year?
Right, yeah. They weren't always believed, though.
No.
And then we get these two contrasting sayings. There's news from Bree, and then there's stuff that's sure as Shire talk.
That's right. Now, those two, by the way, seem to reflect the parochialism of the Shire hobbits a bit, right? I mean, the news from Bree is not accurate, but sure as Shire talk
news
is.
From Bree is hearsay. It's rumor, whereas sure as Shire talk, that's real.
Yeah.
And then Sam talks about the Haradrim, but they're actually called the Swertings in Hobbit stories, and they come from what he calls the Sunlands.
That's right.
Hat tip to Hammond and Skull for pointing us to Tolkien's nomenclature again, where Tolkien says that Sunlands is a Shire name for Harad.
Right.
Tolkien says it is evidently meant as a popular name in common speech or other languages, current in Gondor in the northwest, for the little-known countries of the far south.
And we also get some more on the Shire word for the people from this region, the Swertings. They are said to be the name in the Shire for the legendary, to hobbits, dark-skinned people of the Sunlands. It is evidently a derivative of sword, which is still in use, like swarthy, which we've talked about before.
Right. And then he talks about how the Haradrim, or the Swertings, supposedly use Oliphants in battle. Little bit of exaggeration here. They might actually have platforms for spearmen and archers, but in the Hobbit stories, these become houses and towers atop these gigantic beasts.
Yeah, and then there's the doubtful claim that the Oliphants themselves are picking up and throwing rocks and trees.
Yeah, that doesn't seem very likely.
No, but, Sam is disappointed at their absence despite this threatened violence and wonders, maybe they're not even real. Oh, poor guy.
I know, that's sad. Well, just you wait, Sam. Just you wait.
That's right.
But Smeagol knows nothing of these creatures, and he, for one, hopes they don't exist.
I don't want them to be.
I do not want to see them. I do not want them to be.
My goodness, yeah.
And then he returns to the matter at hand. Frodo, won't you come with Smeagol?
Yep. And Frodo, I love this moment because he stands up, having had this good laugh at Sam's recitation of an old Hobbit rhyme. It's taken him back home for a bit. And that laughter, that, as it so often does, I think, for a lot of us when we're faced with a hard decision, it's cured him of his hesitancy. He's now willing to move forward one way or the other and make that decision. He's a little less stressed. And in fact, he's so less stressed that first, before he makes his decision, he describes a scene that, frankly, we'd all love to see, and that I'm kind of surprised Peter Jackson didn't film just as a dream sequence. Gandalf on a white elephant with 1,000 others, and elephant cavalry ready to break into Mordor.
I would love to see that.
Wouldn't it? That would be awesome, man. Yeah.
I would be very annoyed if it actually made it into the real story in the movie.
Well,
but as a dream sequence, it would have been great.
It would have been awesome.
But, look, he acknowledges, we don't have that.
No, we don't.
But then he finally makes his decision.
Yeah.
He says the third turn may turn the best. So let's do this.
And we talked about thrid time throw a best last week, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So Gollum is genuinely excited here in this last paragraph of the chapter. He's patting Frodo and calling him wise and nice and good. He's very, very happy, in a good mood now.
And then he suggests that they rest and wait until the sun goes down before going soft and quick as shadows. And that line was used in the films, and I loved it in the films.
It's well done. It's one of those iconic lines from the movie.
It is.
Soft and quick as shadows does not, however, describe Barliman. What's in the mailbag that he's brought to us tonight, Sean?
No, not one bit. Well, let's see. Paul in Guelph, Ontario asks, while reading chapter 23 of the Silmarillion and the expanded story in Unfinished Tales, that's of Tuor and his coming to Gondolin, Paul says, I was curious about the cloak that Ulmo gives Tuor. The cloak was to mantle him in shadow from the eyes of his enemies, which Tuor uses and at times covers Veronwe also. This made me curious to whether there was any link to the cloaks given to the Fellowship in Lorien. When Pippin asks whether they are magic, the elves answer that the cloaks were woven by Galadriel and her maidens, made in Lorien with all the things they loved. But it is mentioned that they would be great aid in keeping out of sight of unfriendly eyes. Paul says it would appear that Tuor's cloak was provided directly by Ulmo, while the Lorien cloaks were made in Lorien from materials there. But they have the same ability to hide the wearer from their enemies or unfriendly eyes. Now the text, Fellowship, noted the cloaks were worn by the Galadhrim, and Galadriel was Noldorin, and I believe Veronwe was too, so is there any possible connection that the technology for the Galadhrim cloaks came from Tuor's cloak, based on a potential link between Veronwe and Galadriel?
Well, I confess that's a really interesting speculation, Paul. I like that.
It is.
And I'd like to think there is a link, but I have to say, at least where I'm coming from, I don't think it seems very likely. Yes, both Veronwe and Galadriel were Noldor, but Galadriel was in exile in Doriath during the First Age and didn't have contact with very many folks at all, and certainly wouldn't have had contact with anybody from Gondolin. They were famously isolationist, didn't have contact with anyone.
That's right. And Veronwe was from Gondolin.
Yeah, he was. One of the handful that was sent out on the ships, and the only one to have come back.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I suppose that leaves us with the question of whether Galadriel learned this art way back when she was still in Valinor. But I have to say, even that seems unlikely because Ulmo, who, of course, gave the cloak to Tuor, Ulmo didn't exactly hang out much in Valinor, right? I mean, the Valaquenta tells us that he went seldom to the councils of the Valar unless great matters were in debate, for he kept all Arda in thought, and he has no need of any resting place. So, I don't know. I don't see him hanging around teaching Noldor how to make cloaks of invisibility, even though I do like the idea.
I do like the idea, too, but I think you're right. I don't think there's any reason to believe there's a connection here, and it does seem very unlikely that Galadriel would have had any contact at all with Veronwe.
Yeah, with anybody from Gondolin, yeah.
What seems most likely is that the elvish cloaks are just elvish magia.
Yeah.
And, look, Galadriel's skill could appear nearly as powerful as that of the Valar.
Certainly.
She was certainly ennobled by her time in Valinor, and as the wielder of a ring of power, that ring of power, we know, enhanced her abilities, and that would probably have to include the weaving of cloaks. So while to us, it might look like Galadriel's cloak is similar in nature to the cloak that Tuor was given by Ulmo, we got to remember, we're mere mortals reading these stories thousands of years after they've taken place. I suspect that if we were there in the story, we'd probably see they're actually probably quite different indeed. And since there's no link between the two people who, were known to be associated with them, I just don't really think that there's a connection there. But
yeah,
as much as I'm sorry, Paul, because I don't think there's much there to go on, I do like the thought. I think it's a really cool idea. But Alan, do we have time for another one?
I think we do, maybe just a little bit. Hanan L. pointed out that there's a rather famous half-elven family that all, or mostly, as Arwen is not listed here, use the prefix El at the start of their names. Elrond, Elros, Elladan, Elrohir, Elwing, and so on. Now, Hanan says, thinking about their family, I remembered that one of their ancestors is Elwë, or Ilu Thingol. This made me wonder if the EL component was passed down, or named after the L in Elwë or Elu. At first, I was hesitant about asking this question since there are two generations between Elwë and Elwing, and those are named Luthien and Dior, so no ELs there. And then Hanan asks, what do you think? So I just thought, well, I don't know, but I bet I know Sean does, because this is etymology, and it's related to some of the descendants of his favorite person in the entire world.
Yep, hold my beer.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm going to go take a break for a minute.
First of all, Hanan, please don't ever hesitate to ask us a question, especially not a question like this. I love this question.
Yeah, I know.
And I think Alan at least sort of likes it or tolerates me going into it. Super interesting stuff. So, yeah, do the El names that we see in the Third Age, Elrond, Elladan, Elrohir, Elrond's mom, Elwing, I know we don't see her in the Third Age, but, part of the family. Are these names somehow passed down from Elwë or Elú as he's more often known? I think they are, though perhaps not directly. So let's get into this.
Okay.
First of all, let's talk a little bit about why this is a thing, right? Why would a family choose to name all of their kids names that sound alike? Well, personal preference can certainly be a factor. I can think of a few families I know in the real world who give their kids all names starting with the same letter. Sometimes it happens to be the same letter as one of the parents' first initials. And of course, we all know people who are just named after their parents.
Sometimes it's the same name. George Foreman.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes there's people who are just flat out named after their parents. You got juniors, you got thirds. I've got a good friend who's the fourth of his name. Family tradition, personal preference can be a factor here.
Mm-hmm.
But in the Middle Ages, it was even more common to give children names that started with the same few letters as the name of the father or mother in some cases. And it was particularly common among prominent families like royalty.
Yeah.
I actually found a Quora article online that talked about this topic, and I'll put it in the show notes. It pointed out that in the royal family of 9th century Wessex, the king, Athelwulf, had children named Athelstan, Athelswith, Athelbald, Athelbert, Athelred, and Alfred the Great, who apparently, as the black sheep of the family, had something to prove.
Well,
proved it.
Yeah, he did, actually. That's hence the Great, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a very good reason why a prominent family, like a royal family, would do this that goes beyond just tradition or personal preference. In the Middle Ages, surnames as we use them today, they just were not common. So how are people supposed to know what family you're from, who your parents are? Well, one way to do that is with the patronymic. And we see that a lot, right? Beowulf, son of Ecgtheow. Bjorn, son of Ragnar. Gimli, son of Glóin. But another way, which was very common among Anglo-Saxon noble families, was to name the children with a name that starts the same few letters as the parents' names. That way, when you meet some prince named Athelstan, you'd figure it out. Oh, you must be Athelwulf's boy.
That's right.
Yeah.
And it's also worth remembering that these names all meant something. So if your name is Athelwulf, that's not just some random series of sounds. That actually means noble wolf in Old English.
Yeah.
And you name your sons Athelstan and Athelred and the rest. Athelstan means noble stone. Athelred means noble counsel.
There you go.
So you're not just picking a group of letters that sounds nice. You're establishing a link between the generations through the actual meanings of their names. I'm the noble wolf, and this is my son, noble stone, and this is my other son, noble counsel.
I love that. We see Tolkien do this very prominently with the lineage of Aragorn. Aragorn, son of Arathorn, son of Arador, son of Arganui, son of Arathorn, son of Arasuil, son of Arahad. I mean, goes on.
Kind of goes on and on, doesn't it?
The R names in Aragorn's line go back all the way to before the fall of Arthedain, to Argaleb I in the 13th century of the Third Age. So
that's a tradition.
That is really tradition. And that establishes Aragorn as a member of this ancient royal lineage, an heir of the line of the North Kingdom. And in fact, the AR element at the beginning of all those names comes from Aran, king.
Right.
Ha.
And I think that that's what's happening with all the L names, too, to bring us back to Hanan's question.
Mm-hmm.
Because like Aragorn's family, Elrond's family is a prominent one that has an important lineage.
Oh, yeah.
Now, El in their names means star.
Right.
And that connects them all the way back to their ancient ancestor, Elwë, which means starman. There's a starman
I was waiting for a little Bowie
in the sky.
Nice.
Thank you. Haven't had a chance to sing much Bowie on the show.
No, we haven't done a lot of Bowie here. It's true.
No. But going back to Hanan's question, Elwë, or Thingol himself, didn't make a tradition out of this. He didn't do it.
No.
He married Melian. Their daughter was Luthien.
Mm-hmm.
Luthien married Beren, and their son was Dior. So the L names actually do end up skipping 2 generations. But Dior actually starts it up again. First, he takes the name Eluchil, Elu's heir, for himself, and then he names his children Elwing, Elured, and Elurin. So why did he do this? Well, I think I know why, and I promise I'm going to be wrapping this up soon. Dior was the son of Thingol's daughter and a mortal man.
Right.
He wasn't born in Doriath. He wasn't raised in Doriath. But he was named as the heir to the throne of Doriath.
Ah, yeah.
Imagine how that looks to John Q. Elfpublic living in Doriath at the time of the succession. You want to talk politics.
Oh, yeah.
This half-mortal son of the king's daughter is going to be our new king?
Oh, man.
I mean, come on. We all know how awesome Luthien and Beren were from reading the stories, but for the common guy in Doriath in the First Age, that's a recipe for a succession crisis.
Fair enough.
Dior must have known he'd be the heir to Thingol's throne if Thingol ever decided he didn't want to rule anymore.
Or if he decided to take several stab wounds to the lower parts of his body.
I don't know if he really wanted to do that.
Stabby, stabby, bleed, bleed.
He ended up doing that.
That's true. Yes, he did.
I mean, Dior knows his mom and dad don't want the throne, so he knows that if he's ever going to take this throne, he's going to have to establish legitimacy.
Yeah.
And I think one way to do that is to link himself back to Thingol with his name and with the names of his children.
Huh.
So Dior becomes Eluchil, and his kids are Elwing, Elured, and Elurin.
Huh.
And when he strolls in through the doors of Menegroth claiming the throne, people are like, oh, okay, you guys all have El in your name. You're part of Elu's family. All right, cool. Come on in.
Well, that is interesting. I love that speculation because, once that's established, I guess it becomes tradition easily enough, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, sadly, Elured and Elurin didn't have a chance to have children, but Elwing's children were Elrond and Elros. And though Elros went off in a different direction, that is west, Elrond named his sons Elladan and Elrohir.
That's right. And it actually leaves me wondering why Arwen wasn't named similarly.
Yeah, that's exactly where I went, yeah.
Why Arwen and not Elwyn? I don't know. Maybe it sounded too much like Elethwyn, which is just too closely tied to Morwen, Turin's mom.
Yeah.
I guess we can only guess on that one.
I guess we can, but Arwen Undomiel does sound better than Elwen Undomiel.
It does.
But only a little. Yeah. Elwen, if you said it just right, it could sound good. I don't know.
And she does have the L at the end, now that you point that out. Undomiel.
That's true. That's true.
So
maybe that works. I don't know. Well, folks, that does wrap it up for another episode of the Prancing Pony podcast. But please be sure to join us again next week when we encounter a paragraph's worth of the flora of Middle-earth as we venture into Ithilien in Of Herbs and Stewed Rabbit.
Oh, I'm going to be breaking out the herbological word nerdery.
Yes, you will, sir. Yes, you will.
Well, folks, we want to take a moment to thank the team that helps make this show better. That's our research assistants, along with our Barlaman, Becca Davis, producer Jordan Rennells, social media manager Casey Hilsey, event and Patreon community coordinator Katie McKenna, and website guru Phil Dean.
And speaking of the website, please be sure to visit us there at theprancingponypodcast.com, where we've got show notes, hilarious outtakes, Prancing Pony ponderings, and our online storefront, where you can get all sorts of PPP merch.
And definitely check out our library page. You know we love the books here at the Prancing Pony Podcast, and we've provided links for you to get nearly every book we mention on the show. And we do get a few pennies from the purchases you make there, so thank you.
And we also want to thank some more really important people, our patrons at the Kierdans contribution tier. I'm going to start with DeMay in Alaska, James in Virginia, Tamsin in Minnesota, Chad in Texas, Lance in New Jersey, Paul in Colorado, Jerry in Texas, Bruce in California, Mario in Utah, Seth in Texas, B in California, Joseph in Texas, and Kathy from North Carolina.
And then we have Lori from Washington, Carlos in California, Brian from the UK, Ned from Connecticut, Jerry from Washington, Ryan from Alaska, Joe in Washington, Erwin from the Netherlands, Hal from Washington, D.C., Lucas in Germany, Damien in Pennsylvania, Lise in Switzerland, and Dylan in Australia. Thank you all so very much for your support.
Thank you.
And everyone out there, please be sure you don't miss any episodes of the Prancing Pony Podcast. Subscribe to the show through Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app.
And one last thing as always, don't forget to send your thoughts, comments, and most of all, your poems about Oliphants to Barlaman at theprancingponypodcast.com. And if you want a chance to have your actual voice heard on the show, you can send us audio of you asking your question by visiting podinbox.com/prancingponypod and record your question for us.
Just make sure to still send the question to Barlaman, all right?
Please.
Now, Barlaman's a lot more reliable lately, but we do get a lot of mail, so we'll get to you as soon as we can, and your question or comment may be featured on a future episode.
As always, this has been far too short a time to spend among such excellent and admirable listeners. But until next time.
Farewell, friends.